A diplomatic dispute between China and the United Kingdom is heating up, and the latest source of conflict is the BBC. China announced yesterday it is banning BBC World News from broadcasting within the country. Hong Kong's public broadcaster is following suit. We go to London and Tessa Arcilia, who's following the story for us. Tessa, let's go through what is behind this dispute and the actions announced yesterday by China.
Indeed, Heather, and when you call it a diplomatic spat, it has really expanded beyond, a media issue. This has spilled over into the political sphere indeed. So as you said, the Chinese broadcasting regulator has banned the BBC World News from being broadcast in the country. And the RTHK in Hong Kong, which is the public broadcaster, said that they're not going to use content as well from the BBC. Now, it has to be noted, though, that already the BBC World News is not really that widely watched in China because it's not available. So the locals don't really have access to it. So this is also in a way symbolic. But at the same time, let me read to you what the regulator said. They said, as the channel fails to meet the requirements to broadcast in China as an overseas channel, the BBC World News is not allowed to continue its service within Chinese territory. And they're also not going to consider a reapplication in the next year. Now, the requirements that the Chinese are referring to are that the news has to be truthful and fair and not harm China's national interests. Now, this is important to note because we know that the Chinese have been explicitly unhappy with the BBC's coverage of treatment of the Uyghur minority Muslims in the country, as well as reporting of COVID-19. Just a week ago, the Foreign Ministry had asked the BBC to apologize for what they called fake reports of COVID-19, and they called anything that had to do with Xinjiang lies. Now, let me add another layer of complexity here, Heather, because this banning of the BBC comes a week after the British media regulator had revoked the license of CGTN, that is a Chinese state-owned channel here in the UK. Now, the reason for that is more on a technicality on who owns the license and whether they have editorial control. But the takeaway from this is this action seems to be a tit-for-tat response to that. But is it really just tit-for-tat? The conversation going on here is whether this could really spill into a much bigger sphere, Heather. But the latest move is that China has banned the BBC. So we will have to wait and see what is next. The BBC said they're disappointed with this action.
And as you say, as it moves into the political sphere, what kind of political reaction are we hearing at this point, Tessa?
Yeah, we have had some. The British Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab said this is an unacceptable curtailing of media freedom. We know that China already, if I may use the word robust, they have a robust censorship system mechanism in place in the country. So Dominic Raab said this could harm China's standing in the world. We also heard from the chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee at the British House of Commons here. He says this seems to be an extension of China's Great Firewall. That's what they call that mechanism in the country in order to enable control of the people. Now let's listen because it has expanded beyond the UK. In fact, Heather, let's listen to the US State Department's response to this.
We absolutely condemn the PRC's decision to ban BBC World News. The PRC maintains one of the most controlled, most oppressive, least free information spaces in the world.
I mean, why this is interesting, Heather, is because, as I said earlier, could it become bigger? The British politicians are looking to Australia because Australian politicians had stood up to China, and it has extended beyond a small issue into bigger issues, which has trade implications. So is this going to become just a media issue, or is it going to become much bigger than that? China and the UK are big trade partners. This is a latest example of deteriorating relations, Heather.
All right, Tessa, thank you so much. Tessa Arcilia from London.